Hello, everybody. You're listening to the Big Chill Podcast. This is episode 660, 2024 Euro Final Recap and Southgate's Resignation. Hello, Big Chillians, and welcome back to the Big Chill Podcast. I'm Frank, joined as always with Eddie. Eddie, so another tournament and same result. Nothing's changed. I'm sure you're happy to know that you can still say that England have never won a major tournament in your lifetime.
Well, I'm not happy, but I mean, nothing's changed. I will get on to this right over the course of this podcast. Definitely plenty has changed, obviously, with Southgate announcing his resignation today. Yeah. But also, I just think the landscape of English football has changed over the last few years, where now we're focusing on the disappointment of losing a final versus, when Southgate took charge, we were the disappointment of losing to Iceland in the first knockout round. So, there's been a massive advancement in the state of the English national team, which, we can get into in more detail. But yes, for context for listeners who are unaware, one of my more controversial theories is that you're always better off as a supporter never actually watching your team win that big prize, because it will ultimately be somewhat hollow. You won't get the level of satisfaction and enjoyment out of it that you imagined you would. And then as a result of them winning, you won't have that same level of anticipation in the future and that hope that maybe this time will be the time. And so I'm kind of the belief that losing in the final is the best possible outcome, because it gives you it gives you like maximum enjoyment over the course of the tournament, because obviously you get to see your team win a number of matches, and you get to experience the full pleasure of the tournament. And then you lose in the final, and that's disappointing. But it means that next Euros I'll be even more. I mean, look, I'm being fueled by back-to-back defeats in finals for England. So the next Euros in the UK, majority of the matches being played in England, how could I not be even more excited for that tournament than I was for Euro 2008, which England didn't qualify for. So that wasn't a good example, but Euro 2012.
Yeah, so I think that's obviously the starting headline. Let's start with some non-match kind of topics. So the first thing obviously is where you watch the match can potentially have a major impact on both your viewing pleasure and experience, but also, maybe with you, some superstitions, some luck that you provide or take away from the actual team. So, I guess the first question is, were you at home with toothbrush in hand watching this match?
Not at home. No toothbrush.
Wow.
So I did not do my part.
That's it.
But I watched it Bugsy's, a bar that obviously we've mentioned in the past. I went knowing, I have to say, with my level of superstition that I do have, that is where I watched England lose the last final.
Wow.
And I haven't had a great deal of success.
Double down.
Yeah, I haven't had a great deal of success watching England play any international sport at Bugsy's. Ultimately, been a lot of failure when I've gone to Bugsy's to watch matches across a range of sports. So I don't think it's good luck. I will say that. I had not watched a single England match at Bugsy's over the course of the tournament.
This is unbelievable. For someone who is just bathes themselves in superstition, the fact that you're putting all this together to watch this match at Bugsy's, the fact you didn't even pack like a travel toothbrush is disappointing. Yeah, I'm sure there are players on that squad that are going to be disappointed to hear that you didn't even bother to pack a travel toothbrush to pop into the world's hottest bathroom in Paris to brush your teeth.
Yeah, would have had to throw that one out immediately. But yeah, Adam Warden and I played the same number of minutes at this Euros, and I guess you could argue that in the end I may have had more of an impact on the outcome in my decision to where I watched the final and how I watched it. But I knew, in my superstitious mind, I knew that I was not doing I was not putting my best effort in with the decision that I took on Sunday. But again, I was happy to live with that because I thought, you know what, England losing isn't the worst thing ever. So I'll say this: I would not have watched the semifinal at Bugsy's, but I was happy to watch the final. So it's complex.
That's one way of putting your superstitions. That's putting a positive spin on it. So I watched it at an Airbnb. I was traveling in California. Basically, long story short, I was in a hockey tournament, and we had won our playoff game, our next playoff game would have been directly at the time of the finals. So when we lost in heartbreaking fashion, the only thing that we could look forward to, especially because our goalie is from London, so him and I were at least had the, optimism to say now we can watch England, and at least we'll have something to be happy about at the end of this. But as everyone probably listening knows, not only did we lose a shitty playoff match that we should have dominated, we then had to sit and watch England lose in the finals as well, instead of potentially just playing in a playoff and hearing that they lost in the last minute, which would have been a lot easier to swallow than actually watching it. Because of him, I had picked out 2 English pubs that were within 10 or 15 minutes of each other that I would have went and watched it. But he said he gets very nervous in matches and he didn't want to be around large crowds because he gets very nervous. So we ultimately decided to watch it at the Airbnb. And luckily for them, I have a Fox Sports account because they did not realize that the Airbnb, while it does have a smart TV, does not have cable. So luckily we were able to stream it on a nice 95-inch television in a game room. That was pretty cool. So it was an optimal viewing experience, but not an optimal match.
That sounds like a pretty good setup.
Yeah, so there was about 8 or 10 of us, almost like 2/3 of the team was there watching.
Yeah, no, I think that sounds. Yeah, I would have opted for that if I had been there and we had a vote. I would have said let's watch it at home with that setup and enjoyed it there. But yeah, no, it was disappointing. Look, as a way of maybe transitioning from that into the match itself, I went into the final of Euro 2020 expecting England to win because I thought they were the better side. I thought they played the better football out of England compared with Italy over the course of the tournament. I thought they were, I'll say it, the vastly superior team. And I think performances post 2021 have gone on to show that England were the better team than Italy and just didn't deliver on that particular day. So I went into the final of Euro 2020 with great expectation. And I went into this final thinking, look, on paper, England have the better first 11 and the better squad. I think I'm sure there's some people who will disagree. I think you're wrong. I think that England, not viewed in terms of performances over the course of this tournament, but in terms of the actual quality within that side, are the better team.
But however, can I clarify? You don't mean every starting 11 is better. You mean as a whole, England starting 11 outweigh Spain's or outweigh?
Yeah, I mean, but I will say if you did like a man for man comparison and you made the best combined 11, Spain and England, I don't know, I think 2 or 3 Spanish players make that team. And that might be a little generous to Spain because I think of where England are weak and I'm not sure Spain are much stronger necessarily. I know Cucurella had a great tournament, but it's hard to convince me that Cucurella is a wonderful left back because his club form says otherwise. But, so I kind of think, although England are the better set of players, Spain were the best team in this tournament in the build up to the final in terms of the football that they played. And then in the final, and so I went into it thinking on form, clearly Spain are favorites, and I won't be disappointed to lose to the best team in the tournament. And Spain then on the day outplayed England as well. So, viewed in over the context of the entire tournament, Spain were certainly the deserved winners, and they deserved to win the final itself. So, it didn't leave me with that same bitter feeling that actually Euro 2020 did. I really felt like that was a tremendous opportunity missed, whereas this felt like, well, there's injuries to key players. Like Kane clearly isn't fully fit. The players look tired. The left back issue is a major problem. They've not really figured out a consistent game plan. The formation is a bit odd. Spain look like they really know what they're doing, and they're in form. So it sat with me a bit more easily than the previous final did.
Spoken like a true San Francisco 49ers fan. Always an excuse for why you can never come through.
That's not an excuse. It's just an honest assessment, right? And, this we'll have to see with some of this Spanish side. Like, I think it's important, right, to not just focus on England's failure and talk about Spain's success. They didn't come into this tournament as favorites. They came in with a lot of question marks surrounding certain elements of their team. A lot of that stemmed around some of their attacking players. I mean, defensively, there were question marks. They mostly answered those, but also ended the tournament, obviously, as top goal scorers. When we kind of spoke pre-tournament, had my major doubts about like Morata. I don't know whether he proved me wrong because he didn't do that much necessarily over the course of the tournament, but he fit into a team that played extremely well. So, they deserve a lot of credit, but we'll have to see how that ages because they have a lot of young players. And look, we're kind of penciling some of those players in for future greatness. And I think expectations have to be tempered there slightly because that happens a lot. And, not everyone goes on to meet or fulfill their potential. So, just because you're a wonderful 17-year-old doesn't mean you're going to be a world-class 27-year-old. But, that would be my only thing. Let's see how good this Spanish team is over the next 4 or 6 years.
Hey, Yamal had the same amount of goals as Bellingham.
Yeah, look, and he had a wonderful tournament for a 16/17-year-old. No doubt about it. At the same time, I think some of the rave reviews were a little overboard. Even in the semifinal against France, he played very well in that first half and scored an incredible goal. But then in the second half, did nothing. And the reviews were, wow, took control of the match, dominated France. It's like, yeah, he had a very good 25-minute spell, which is incredible. I mean, that's all you need as an attacking player. I'm not saying he didn't do enough, but some of the reaction when you win, there's a lot of overreaction, and Spain are experiencing that at the moment too. And I'll say this too for people, some listeners who will say, well, what about England? England have proven themselves over 6 years. This is a 6-year span in international football where England have answered a lot of questions, fallen short of winning a tournament. But that's, 2 finals of the Euros, a semifinal in the World Cup, and a quarterfinal in the World Cup where they lost a tight match to the eventual finalists. So, we can look at the pedigree of this team and the performances and say, we know kind of what England are. We don't know what Spain are yet.
So let's get into the match a little. I'll start off with just I'll just give some random questions here. Play of the tournament, perhaps. I mean, one could say it was the game-winning goal in the 86th or 87th minute, whatever it was, where he was just onside, made a nice play and put the goal in. But could you argue that the triple header no goal in the 91st minute could go down as the play of the tournament?
Yeah, I do think people giving too much. Wow, what a defensive effort. I mean, he's on the line and the ball's coming towards his head. It would have taken effort to get out of the way. So I don't think it was he's done well. Sometimes when you see players put on the line, they drift off of it weirdly over the course of, as play develops post of a corner or a free kick. So the credit to kind of sticking to that role on the line. But, any sort of warm body would have done exactly what he ended up doing. I don't think there's anything spectacular about the clearance off the line, but it's a good piece of luck. I mean, I don't think there's anything more than you can say about that, because obviously if the header goes a foot or two either side of him, it's a goal. Yeah. You could maybe be slightly critical of the fact that you could place that header a little bit better. Like, everything's happening very, very quickly. So I think it's hard to be, to
I mean,
judgment.
I think maybe you argue the initial header by Declan Rice could have been placed a little better, because that one was, again, a nice save, but kind of right at the keeper, the first one. The second one, I think, is more of just like a boom, boom play where it's just a little lucky on Spain that it goes right back to his head, basically, like you're saying.
Yeah, it is. But at the same time, it's a really good chance. And, you know, it's, and yes, it's maybe not the player because it's Gahey, it's a central defender. Maybe it's not the one you think would have that sort of instinctive ability to finish, but it's a chance you'd want taken. Like,
Yeah.
there's no two ways about it. I'm sure it's going to haunt Gahey for a while, and for him to think, all I needed to do was not find the player on the line, and I've scored the equalizer. But I mean, I don't think in the context of the match, those are not the moments I really sort of rue as an England fan. I don't think that's where they let the match slip away. I think the criticism there lies more in terms of the initial setup and also how they failed to take advantage of having wrestled momentum back once they equalized.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I kind of agree with you. I think my assessment, being unbiased, I think Spain were definitely the better team in this match. They scored early on in that second half and then had, 3 more chances that they probably should have scored again on, at least one of those.
Yeah.
It easily could have been 2-0 in the 50th minute and complete pretty much match over. So I think I do give credit to England to holding on and not letting up that second goal, whether that was them or just Spain missing and not capitalizing. But to come back was nice. And I agree with you. I think they then did have that momentum going a little bit and then kind of gave it up a little. And I felt at that point when Palmer put that first one in, I did think it was now England's match.
Look, Spain looked dead on their feet at that moment. You had a shift in momentum. Obviously, you had a very loud part of England's support behind them at that moment in time, and it really did feel like, even though Spain had been the better team, it did feel like one of those matches where, oh boy, this is when things can slip away from you fast because you're about to face 15 minutes of being on the back foot and, really having to shift from controlling the match and being on the front foot to defending. And England let that slip for a number of reasons. But on the balance, Spain had more good chances. I think if you think about, I thought the first half England played fairly well. They kind of saw out the Spanish storm that was there at the beginning and then started to look quite dangerous on the break, and were actually showing a bit of intent when getting the ball forward quickly, and that was quite good, and they were causing Spain problems defensively. But you think of that first half, I might be missing something, but really the only chance that comes to mind is like the Foden back post from a free kick,
falling down kick kind of thing.
Yeah, which wasn't an easy chance. It's sort of one of those that when you see in real time, you think, "Ooh, he could have done better," but in reality, it's pretty tough. Yes, you could score, but most of the time you're not going to. And actually putting it on target wasn't the worst, effort in the world. Aside from that, you think of the England chances in that match, and it's that, and probably the headers that we just spoke about, and that's
and Jude had that one good chance where he cut into the middle and missed wide left a little, but besides that, not much.
But even that was like the edge of the box, right? It's not, and the Cole Palmer goal isn't a good chance. It's a very nice finish, but it's not a good chance. So they didn't create a lot. Spain definitely created more and took 2 of those chances. They could have easily, on another day, that could have been finished 3 or 4-0 to Spain without having too many complaints.
Yeah, no, I kind of agree. And I think getting into some of the performances, I think Harry Kane is definitely a talking point here. Do you chalk this up to just not being fit, potentially having a knock that we don't know about? Or do you think this is the start of the decline of Harry Kane?
So I think he's definitely not fit. And you saw that in just how tired he got over the course of that match in particular. the argument, it's a tough discussion to have. The argument can be made then, would England have been better off playing with someone with either Watkins or Tony up front, potentially, from the beginning? I do think Kane is getting way more criticism than he deserves because, again, we spoke about it, and it's not like he was missing a ton of chances. I can think of a couple of chances that Kane missed, but the reality is, with the way that England team were playing, they weren't creating a lot of chances, and they were sitting so deep collectively, and that Kane was kind of on a hiding to nothing in terms of analysis of his attacking sort of outputs. And at the same time, we don't know what he was being asked to do by Southgate in terms of, it's easy to tell him, well, why are you dropping so deep? Why are you putting in that defensive effort? But at the same time, maybe that's what he's being asked to do. And he's sacrificing himself in a sense to try and contribute to the team as a whole. So I think I think a number of England players are being sort of, singled out for criticism when really this should be, it's a poor performance of the collective and poor tactics. And when it comes to the start of the decline, I mean, no, he was top goal scorer in the Bundesliga last season. I think he'll probably be top goal scorer in the Bundesliga this season. I think Bayern Munich will win the league. I think Bayern Munich will probably win one or two other competitions. I think he'll get that sort of monkey off his back when it comes to being trophyless Harry Kane. And
I mean, I think anyone starting at Bayern Munich, though, could be top goal scorer in the Bundesliga.
Well, I don't think it's as easy as people make out. You don't score the number of goals Harry Kane scored this season by just being, a poacher and being in a good team and sneaking the odd goal. Same as you don't score the number of goals that Erling Haaland has scored for City by being terrible either. And I know people will go into the deep analysis of who has Harry Kane scored goals against, and if you take away his penalties and all of that stuff, really he mostly scores against teams ranked lower than 50th in the world, and there's all of that talk. And I know we have some listeners who passionately, basically hate Harry Kane. I think they're wrong. Yeah, I think they're wrong. I think he's still a good player. I think he's still England's best option up front. I think Watkins and Tony had nice little cameos over the course of this tournament, but I think if we had a full tournament of watching only Watkins play up front, there would be, oh yeah, that's the player who was playing for Weston-super-Mare 10 years ago. That makes sense. I mean, we'd figure it out. We'd know why and Aston Villa had a fabulous season, but we'd know why Barcelona aren't snapping him up off of Aston Villa this season. We'd know why, okay, Tony had his gambling issues and maybe Arsenal are going to buy him, but we know why there's not all of the Premier League and all of the big clubs in Europe clamoring to sign Tony. Like we can pretend, and you can make arguments that they might have suited the England system better and all that. That's fair. But I think if we'd watched 7 matches of them, there would have been a lot of people saying, wait, why isn't Harry Kane playing?
So quickly, do you think Watkins coming in pretty much with a third of the match left was the right move, or would you have done Tony?
I mean, I was surprised that they chose to bring Ollie Watkins on in the semifinal, and obviously that worked out really, really well. I think the argument with Watkins is the type of runs that he makes and trying to sort of stretch the defense offered something very interesting to England. They used that obviously really well in the semifinal, not only for the goal, but sort of some of the movements that he made in the build up to the goal. And now he started to create space that they then took advantage of for that late winner. They didn't really try and, he came on, and once they equalized, they sort of abandoned all plans to try and take advantage of what Watkins was offering. So I don't know. They're both decent Premier League players. I
actually wanted Tony on. I think he can do slightly more. I understand you go with Watkins after the semifinal performance. You could say he deserved it. You could say maybe he was on a hot streak. Maybe he had really good confidence going in, and that's why he put him in there. I don't hate, I by no means dislike that decision, but I just think Tony adds a little more to that. I think it worked, I guess, in a way. They scored to equalize, but I don't know.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's not it's not an easy decision. And again, I'll say it's not an easy decision because neither one of them are particularly spectacular players. Like, that's what makes it tough. They're both just good Premier League forwards, which is, I'm not trying to belittle that. That's a wonderful level of football to reach and to play at. And there's not that many people who are as good as they are at being, forwards. But we're talking about the final of a major international tournament. And ideally, you'd like to be bringing someone off the bench who's a bit better than decent Premier League forward. France suffered from the same thing. France desperately needed a goal against Spain, and we're bringing Olivier Giroud on.
All right, France's leading goal scorer of all time.
For now,
what more do you want, Eddie?
Heading off to the MLS this summer, that said a lot.
Messi's
too.
There.
And I think the Kane situation, unfortunately, because of his fitness levels, someone had to come on for him.
Yeah.
But anyone hoping that this is the end of Harry Kane also has to hope that a very, very talented English forward appears out of nothing in the next 2 years. Because otherwise, we're going to play in a major tournament with a pretty mediocre player up front. The rest of the team can be spectacular. And then maybe you can argue that if that player suits the system better, the overall team will be better. The sum of the parts will, outperform the individual elements. Sure, perhaps. But the reality is, especially as England fans, although we've not been great over the last 20 years, we've actually enjoyed a period of, we've been blessed by quite a lot of very talented players to kind of lead the line, from basically stretching back from, the mid-90s with the likes of, Shearer, Teddy Sheringham, Andy Cole, who barely got a look in, Chris Sutton, can kind of just keep Les Ferdinand, then leading into Michael Owen, Robbie Fowler, Wayne Rooney. It's a pretty long list of very, very, and then kind of feeding into Harry Kane taking over from the sort of Wayne Rooney era. And we might be about to watch players who we're probably not going to remember for a super long period of time. Like, I still think Tony's, the opening line of his obituary is going to be a player who was suspended for betting on football.
Well, I mean, at least you've got a really spectacular midfield to support that then. Which leads me to my next question, Eddie. Does Cole Palmer deserve to play more after this Euros?
Yeah, I mean, I thought he deserved to play more in the Euros themselves. I think that's one of Southgate's mistakes. And I think that you can make a strong argument that similar actually to the same mistakes that Deschamps made with France, is he was too loyal to players and didn't adapt to who is in form and who should I be playing. And
now, is that at the expense of Foden then, you think?
Look, I think both Foden and Saka had moments of playing extremely well over the course of that tournament, but overall didn't do a ton. And Saka covered up for that with the equalizing goal in the quarterfinal. But in reality, that's not a tournament he's going to be tremendously proud of. So, Palmer should have started over either one of them. I don't know how you could have made that decision. I would have liked to have seen genuine wingers used in the final to kind of try and stretch Spain more. So on both sides, whether that makes more sense than for Saka to be starting on the right than Cole Palmer playing, or switching them around if they prefer, and Foden, I guess, misses out. But then, and I still would have liked to see Foden play to the 10 and drop Bellingham. Bellingham had a mediocre tournament as well. Like, all of the England midfield were mediocre over the full. Rice was bad. Like, he's the standout. There was no good Declan Rice performance, but at least the others had good performances at different. Kobe Manu was good. I mean, he's actually probably the only one who can say he never really played poorly.
Yeah.
And probably exceeded expectations. Everyone else, like, they disappeared for long periods of time. And look, we can get on to the fact that there's a lot of Jude Bellingham backlash going on right now. Supposedly, he wasn't a super popular figure within the England dressing room. That a lot of people feel as if when things are going well, Jude Bellingham likes being front and center, but doesn't do interviews after England lose or don't win. Supposedly some players within England camp. I know you loved the Hey Jude commercial stuff. supposedly a few of the other England players weren't as sold on the idea of Jude Bellingham being billed as the England savior. And I think so that didn't make him super popular. He also, I mean, the Athletic wrote a whole article about, I think it was the Athletic wrote a whole article about it, including the fact that because he'd been sort of fast-tracked through the England youth system, most of those England players have strong friendships because they've played with each other at different levels from the age of 13, 14. But Jude Bellingham has consistently skipped those levels to advance to the next. And as a result of that, has no real friendships within the England team. That's also been exacerbated by the fact that he's gone and played abroad. So he's not even teammates with any of these players. So he is quite isolated within the England team and supposedly not super popular. And that people didn't love that he did no real, like when England where criticism was going, he didn't do press appearances. But everyone else in the England camp did, including players who weren't even playing. So the Jude Bellingham backlash is in full, go at the moment. We'll see how long it lasts for, though.
Yeah, I mean, I felt even watching him on the pitch, you could see, maybe not attitude's not the right word, but a little bit. There are definitely times where you could see he was getting visibly frustrated at other players. And I get it. Like, everyone's been in a game where you're open and someone doesn't give you the pass or fucks up the pass or whatever. But you have to control your emotions enough to not then make that player, because then what happens, and I know this firsthand because it happens to me a lot because I'm a terrible head case when I play. When you miss someone on a pass and they get pissed off, then that next time it's in your head before you're about to pass to make that pass even more difficult, because then you're either thinking like, oh God, I got to make sure I pass it to this person this time because I didn't last time, and then maybe it's not the right play, or oh God, I can't fuck up this pass, and you're definitely then going to fuck it up. So and you could see his attitude on the pitch at not just this match, but throughout the tournament. You could see how upset he would get anytime he wasn't given the ball or anytime someone missed the net or missed the target. And that's not what you want to see on a team that's making the finals. If that's on a team that's 0-3, and changes need to be made, okay, whatever. But when you're a good team like this and you're making the finals and you still have someone that's that visibly upset, it's not a good sign.
No, yeah, and he did it from start to finish in that tournament. And yeah, I think I'd be annoyed by it if I played with him, and especially because he does have a bit of an aura about him. And you are playing, yes, he is young, but there are a host of other young players in that England side and substitutes coming on who don't have that same sort of status, both within the England team and within football in general. You run the risk of putting added pressure onto them, which isn't ideal. And yeah, I mean, there were also highlights of him shouting at Southgate that he had to change something around the sort of 60, 65-minute mark. Now, you can argue that he's right, but is he the player that should be shouting at Southgate to change something? It does feel like he is, again, he's a wonderfully talented player, and he could go on to have, a career that is talked about for generations. But he does have to be a bit careful about buying into the Bellingham hype. And unfortunately for him, that people then do a lot of digging up. So there were reports when Borussia Dortmund sold him to Real Madrid that Dortmund were happy to see the back of him because of the impact he had on the dressing room, and that he was also not a popular figure at Dortmund. And you don't want to start to become viewed, because you can kind of get away with it at Real Madrid because that's sort of the ethos. They're the Galacticos. They bring in these superstars. You can be an asshole at Real Madrid because you're all supposed to just be the best players in the world, and they just assemble these super teams, and who cares? As long as the fans like you and as long as you win things, nothing else is going to be mentioned. But elsewhere, joining up with that England squad, and you saw it, I don't know if you saw the clips, but at the end of the match, he's then going around to sort of pat people on the back and shake hands, and he gets shunned by a few England players, including Foden, who just completely blanks him. And that wasn't an accidental, I didn't see you. It was very much, I don't want to be part of the Bellingham PR machine right now. Like, I don't want this clip of, isn't Jude Bellingham wonderful? Here he is consoling all of the other England players after defeat, which, if you remember, that's one of the clips from the 2022 World Cup. Harry Kane missed that penalty against France. Jude Bellingham came running up to him to tell him to keep his head up and that it would be all right. That is the right reaction in that moment. But you don't want to be that guy all of the time because, like in any work environment, that can be a bit annoying. And, that's the one thing.
He also took it out on that cooler as well.
Yeah, well, that's fair enough. But
fair enough. What the fuck did that cooler do, Eddie? Just providing a nice solution to keep you hydrated.
Well, I mean, when Harry Kane got potentially injured in the quarterfinal, right, when he went off the pitch, it was the cooler that he kind of tripped over. So
maybe he does it less.
Maybe the England players are not a big fan of those coolers. But yeah, no, I mean, there's a number of England players who will feel like they really let themselves down in that tournament. And certainly when they got to the stage, they never played particularly well. There was a certain sense that they were almost a team of destiny with that ability to score late goals and find ways to get through, that you sort of thought, wow, this is going to be a team that didn't play well, but sort of that little bit of class shone through at the right moments in time. And even with then the Cole Palmer equalizer fairly late on, it was like, oh, here we go again. This England team just will find a way. And I think maybe that's a good way of transitioning onto the sort of post-equalizer bit of play, because it did feel like, as we both said, that momentum had majorly shifted. Spain all of a sudden looked really tired. I know everyone is highlighting that Kyle Walker throw-in where he throws it backwards to John Stones 40 yards. And then Stones passes it back to Pickford, and then Pickford boots it out for a Spain goal kick as like England taking a defensive approach. No one's really open for the throw-in. I don't hate the Kyle Walker decision. I know Stones is under pressure. I don't think he has to pass the ball all the way back to Pickford. I think Stones kind of deserves a bit more criticism in that sequence. And I think Pickford also deserves a bit more criticism in the sequence because he just kicked the ball for a Spain goal kick. It's awful. But, I think putting all the blame on Kyle Walker's shoulders seem a little bit unfair in terms of what happened afterwards. But that being said, from the 76th minute on until the 88th minute, when England get a bit desperate and start really throwing everything forward, Spain had 80 touches in the England half. Ollie Watkins did not have a single touch in that time period. And England did not have a single touch in the Spanish half. So you're looking at, they did have a brief sort of 5-minute spell where it looked like they were on top, and then all of a sudden the wheels came off. And I think Southgate obviously is riding a bit of a wave of a momentum in terms of his ability to make substitutions and how those impacted the match, including even then bringing Cole Palmer on and he instantly scores. But right before Spain took the lead again, the substitutions he was about to make were to bring on Kieran Trippier and to bring on Conor Gallagher. So two sort of defensive-minded substitutions that indicate that he was almost thinking, let's hang on for penalties at this stage. We've got a whole period of extra time to go, but let's see if we can get ourselves down to a coin flip. And we think we're quite good at penalties. So there was just a lot of negativity in the England mindset that I think when they were pressured, that negativity came to the fore. And that's where Southgate deserves criticism and has to take responsibility, because that's based on how he set that team up and the instructions that he gave them. And also the sort of mindset that he instilled in them over his time as manager. And it's strange because England weren't always this negative in previous tournaments, but in this one, they were just horrifically negative. I mean, there's equally that stat. We're obviously a podcast that loves XG, and there's that other stat that is flying about, which is that England, from an XG perspective, created less. I can't find the exact number, but had a lower expected goals outcome than Croatia, and Croatia went out in the group stages. So 4 more matches and you didn't create more chances than a team that
Yeah.
couldn't even qualify from the group.
Yeah. I mean, so the other issue I had, although this is obviously desperation mode, you had 4 minutes added at the end, and the
that was
whistle
bullshit.
blew directly at
bullshit.
4 when you had, I think, 2 substitutions and 2 like long stoppages for injuries.
For Spanish players.
Yes, for Spanish
Wrong.
players.
Like,
It should at least have been 95, if not 96.
Oh, yeah. No, the fact that he blew his whistle literally as the clock
Before
turned
94. It was even before, like 2 seconds, but it was like 93:58. That whistle was gone.
With England having awarded England a free kick, admittedly in their own half.
But still.
He awards England a free kick, then they kind of start to set up to take it, and then he goes, Matt, we've had enough. Now,
I couldn't believe it.
It's clutching at straws. England were probably not going to score, even if you'd give them another 6 minutes.
What we just said that they are late minute magic.
No, sure. And again, it suits the English footballing approach, right, of long balls into the box. England do that just quite well because it's what you grow up doing. So, a little bit of pressure to lob a few balls into the box and see what happens. You never know. And I do agree. That it's not trying to say the referee was responsible for England losing or that England definitely would have scored. It is definitely clutching at straws, but that was ridiculous. And it's also really weird that we've gone through sort of seasons and a Qatar World Cup where we were adding 9, 10, 11 minutes and then this tournament, nothing more than 5. Like, I don't understand, like, what are we doing with this injury time? Is it going to change tournament to tournament in terms of that approach? I don't quite understand it.
And you're right, because now that I think about it, in that second half, right, you had what, 3 goals scored, right?
Yeah, which you would say
you had a goal a minute.
So normally the rule of thumb that they always speak about is that each goal should add a minute on to added time.
And how many subs do you think we had?
Each substitution, well, I'm guessing both teams maybe in the end made all of their subs, maybe 5 each, but certainly 8.
You had one. So I don't know if you count the Rodri one, because that was at the start of the half, I believe, right?
You mean right? Yeah, before the second half had actually kicked off. It was a halftime substitution, yeah.
So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 non-halftime subs were put in.
Which some of them were simultaneous. So, let's say that's 3 separate subs.
None of the, just one was simultaneous at the 89th. Spain put one in, and then England. But they didn't do it right at the same time. England put theirs in, and that Spanish guy sat there and waited the entire time. Okay.
But yeah, so the general rule of thumb that people speak about usually is that it's like a minute per goal and 30 seconds per substitution is what you should be expecting.
So you're already looking at about 6 minutes should have been added.
And then never mind a bit of rolling around and time wasting that obviously always goes on in a match. I'm not critical of the Spanish for it. I would have hoped England would have done exactly the same had roles been reversed. But yeah, I mean, I couldn't believe that he blew his whistle, as the clock rolled to 4. I mean, it's unusual even when there hasn't been additional, because England had the ball. It's an unusual move.
I know.
Under any circumstances, but in a final where you've just witnessed, I would say Spain managed to kill at least 90 seconds lying on the floor in that 4-minute span. So to add nothing on, it was a bit strange. It didn't matter, but it was strange.
Yeah. So before we get on to the Southgate, I have one more random question for you. The past few years, there have been several potential England players that ended up not playing for England. The 2 main ones that come to mind for me are obviously Musiala, who had a pretty good Euros, and then Balogun for the US, who did pretty well for them. But
who cares? We don't even
need to mention him.
Yeah, but he's not. The only way he could get an England shirt is if he bought one like the rest of us. So I mean, there's no point discussing him.
So,
but Musiala would have been nice. I mean,
what does it help?
Musiala is a very good player, but unfortunately, he's also in a position that England are actually overloaded with attacking with the sort of talent. So, like, obviously, Musiala had a better tournament than any of the England players playing in a similar position. So, would we have liked to have had Musiala in this tournament? And could Musiala go on to be better than any of those England players as well? Potentially, yes. But I don't think he's a difference maker, just because in the sense that England have a lot of options in that position. But I think the larger question is some of the players that were left at home for England, would they have been potential difference makers? And I can bring, so the two standouts, right, would have been Grealish and Rashford, both of whom had good cameos or good appearances for England in some of the more recent tournaments. And I think in a lot of those matches, I would have liked to have seen either of those players coming off the bench. Especially, I think with the.
Do you think this helps their chances for the World Cup now? Do you think Grealish comes in with whatever his new haircut is, and he says, "Listen, I don't want to be a dickhead, but if you had me out there, we don't lose that."
I don't think Grealish has that personality, right? Because and I hope he doesn't, because part of the argument is that he's sort of a good glue guy and a good sort of personality hire for the England team, and for him to talk like that would go against the grain there. So, and he obviously wasn't fully fit, and Rashford had a pretty awful season, so I can't understand why neither of them were selected. But I do think Jack Grealish has, I think in the same way Cole Palmer has a level of confidence about him that you don't always see. Like, he has inner belief that it's just born, he's been born with, that he will be the difference maker. Even get me on for 90 seconds and I'll do it. Like, you either have that or you don't, no matter how successful you are. I don't think you can develop that. For example, Harry Kane doesn't have that. He's a wonderful player, but Harry Kane does not have that, I will do this. Like, it's fine. I will make the difference here. And Cole Palmer definitely does. And Jack Grealish also has that. And he just.
Do you think there's a common thread there?
Maybe. We won't get into that, but maybe. But he just kind of exudes that, and I think it can change, the mentality for other players playing with them. But then also as a supporter, like, you see them come on, and it fills you with instant hope in a way that Jared Bowen coming on for England would not have done for me. And again, Jared Bowen's an all right player, but it wouldn't have been, Spain don't know what they're in for now. Jared Bowen's coming on. Whereas you just would have thought, Jack Grealish, he'll find a way. Like, he'll do one thing. He might not be great, but he'll do one thing.
He'll get you a free kick. At the very least, he will guarantee you he gets you a dangerous free kick.
That's for sure. And as a way of then shifting into the Southgate assessment, right, there is a fair argument here that in the end, there's a handful of younger England players, who Gareth Southgate included in that squad, who never played in that tournament. And I think whenever you, don't win a tournament and you have a number of unused players, then you have to start to question, like, what went into the squad selection? Like, why was that player included? If then, especially in an England team that found themselves behind in every knockout game, if you haven't found a reason to get that player on the pitch, then why were they in the squad in the first place? And okay, you can talk about someone like Adam Wharton and say, well, it's experience. And same goes for Gordon. It's experience. Gordon played 4 minutes in the tournament. Well, but being in a major tournament and being around the England squad, that should serve him well for the next World Cup or for the future European championships. And maybe that's the case. But realistically, you have a handful of players there who are barely used. And so you have to start to question. And one of the arguments you might be able to make is that, did Southgate intentionally leave out, which there were murmurs about not including Grealish because he supposedly felt, this is pre-tournament, this was all spoken about, that if he included Jack Grealish in the squad, he would have had to have brought Jack Grealish onto the pitch at different moments in time, because there would have been that pressure to use Jack Grealish. And you can make arguments that he sort of took the easy way out with some of these squad selections and included players who he knew there would be no public pressure to get onto the pitch. And it made it easier for him to not get creative, to not make changes, to not disrupt things, because no one was really pushing for Adam Wharton to come on in the semifinal or the final. they would have done so with Jack Grealish or Marcus Rashford. The same even for Eze, who had a couple of nice little cameos, but there's not that same sort of pressure.
Yeah.
And
Lewis Dunk didn't come on at all. Joe Gomez didn't come on at all.
The defensive ones I can understand a bit more because you're not going to make the same type of defensive substitutions. So
when you can say Wharton and Gordon, are two that,
and Eze, who did well at different times, but then stopped being used. And Jared Bowen came on in the opening match maybe, and then didn't.
I think the first two maybe came on, or maybe the first one. I don't know.
He was like a group stage player, but then you can't be used. You can't be used in the knockout stages.
He's not a knockout guy.
No, which I think I agree with. But then why is he in the squad? Like, would I have rather seen Marcus Rashford coming off the bench than Jared Bowen? I think yes. But and would he maybe have trusted Marcus Rashford to play up front, to come on for Harry Kane a bit more than he maybe trusted Tony or Watkins, even though Marcus Rashford rarely gets used in that central role anymore? Potentially, yes. There's, I don't know. I think there's, and obviously we've already discussed, there's the whole left back issue, which he made a monumental mess of. But so there's some squad selection questions there that will also sort of haunt the Gareth Southgate legacy.
All right, Eddie, I'm going to set you up. Gareth Southgate, his 4 major tournaments for England: quarterfinal and semifinal for World Cup, final for Euros.
Yeah, I mean, reversed, right? Semifinal, then quarterfinal. In the World Cup.
Yeah. Yes.
And then final.
And then final. And then, hold on, 102 matches, I believe, was the total.
Yeah.
And 2.08 points per game. And that is the most for any England manager who has coached over 50 matches. That is the highest points per game total. Literally right behind Ramsey at 2.07. So pretty much identical.
Yeah, I mean, the big difference is Sir Alf Ramsey won a World Cup, so a little major.
I'm just saying points per game.
Yeah, look, I mean, Gareth Southgate is undoubtedly England's second most successful manager. Like Sir Alf Ramsey will get the nod because he won a World Cup, and Gareth Southgate's failure to win a major tournament will be the thing that doesn't, hurts his case to be the greatest ever. He's been, you can say he's the best and most consistent England manager of all time in terms of delivering let's say 3 very successful major tournaments. And I still think that, 2022 World Cup, losing to France in a close quarterfinal, is not a failure. I think to a certain extent, England fans right now, Southgate's getting a lot of criticism, and I think he deserves a lot of criticism for this tournament. But the way he has changed the England setup, changed the mentality, the way he has made England good at beating bad teams, it's now just taken as a given that we will beat any team ranked outside the top 10 when it comes to a major tournament. That was never the case before. And people will point to the luck that he's had in the draws, but then a lot of that luck, as we previously discussed, came about from winning groups. Like you made that point a couple of episodes ago. And, you do to a certain, there's 2 major factors that are played in. One is the tournaments are bigger now. So you are going to play easier opposition because, there's only 10 really great sides and you're less likely to play them because there's more teams in the tournament. And yes, if you win your group, you are more likely to avoid them. So you do kind of make your own luck. I think people have forgotten, yes, people will talk about how talented this England team are, but we've been talking about how talented England teams are my whole life. And we've mostly been watching failure. And yet now Gareth Southgate has delivered a level of success that would have been almost unimaginable, say post-Iceland defeat. And yet we're now saying, but you didn't win anything, so you weren't very good. No England manager has won anything in my lifetime. No, England haven't won anything since 1966. You have to be relatively old at this point to remember the last time England won the only thing they've ever won. And yet our expectations are that it's win or bust from an assessment standpoint. And
yeah, I mean, just kind of getting into that a little bit. If you look at, World Cup, they before Southgate, the last time they made the semifinals was 1990. And you're looking at a time in there where they didn't, like you said, they didn't qualify. A bunch of quarterfinals, last 16, 2014, last in the group stage.
yeah,
So,
and I want to point that out, because even let's look in the last 20 years, right? People talking about luck. 2002, yeah, we played some tough teams in the knockout stages. We also didn't win the group. Sweden won the group. 2010, we played Germany early on in the knockout stages. We didn't win the group. USA won the group. 2014, we finished bottom of the group, and people will say, oh, well, Italy, Uruguay, also in that group. Costa Rica won the fucking group. That's the... And then 2016, we lose to Iceland. And we didn't just lose to Iceland. Iceland deserved to win.
yep.
And then lost 5-1 to France, I think, in the following round, something like that, or 5-2 in the following round. I mean, we don't know how good we have it right now. And we probably won't know how good we've had it until we start to watch England return to performances that I've grown up experiencing on a consistent basis. And, it's very easy to... And I also think people are then... Yes, we didn't knock out Brazil. It's true that the only big team, Germany in 2020, I guess the Netherlands in this World Cup, although people will say the Netherlands aren't that great. But we're also dismissive of some of the teams that we beat in the knockout stages that are pretty good. Like, we beat Colombia in 2018. And people are, whoa, who are Colombia? I don't know, pretty good footballing nation. Like, a lot of times England would have lost to Colombia in the knockout stages of tournaments. The same, even like Denmark, in even this time around, Switzerland, who embarrassed Italy the round before, and then we beat them and we kind of get past them, and it's like, yeah, but it's just Switzerland. You tell that to Italy, just Switzerland. And I think that's where it can be a little bit frustrating in terms of what some of the assessment looks like here, in that I think people are, making light of what he's achieved and some of the opponents. I mean, you talk about that the last time we made the World Cup in 1990, and people like to talk about easy draws, and people love in England to speak about that 1990 World Cup and the heartbreak of losing on penalties and how good it was and how close we were to, winning the World Cup finally. Who do we beat on the way there? We beat Belgium in extra time, at a period in time where Belgium were nothing special.
Wasn't a golden generation.
No. None of them were even born, basically. We beat Cameroon. I mean, wow. So hold on a second. Now beating Senegal is nothing, but beating Cameroon in 1990 was spectacular. And then, we lost to West Germany. So the first good team we played, we lost to. Sounds a lot like the Southgate era to me. But people will, hold 1990 as some special year for English football than what could have been. And Paul Gascoigne crying when he gets a yellow card in the semifinal, knowing that he was going to miss the final. And Gary Lineker shitting himself on the pitch. What a special summer for English football. It's exactly the Southgate era, except the Southgate era was longer and delivered more. And I mean, what does it mean for the next thing? Whoever is replacing Gareth Southgate, they have to win the next World Cup, or it's failure. I mean, what a statement as a nation that anything less than winning is complete failure. I mean, what does that mean for the other teams going to the World Cup? What does that mean for Brazil, Argentina, Germany, Spain, Italy, France? Then we're definitely way better than them. Or that all of those teams should fire their managers immediately after if they also don't win the World Cup. Because I hate to break it to everyone, only one of them is going to do it. Like, everyone else by that metric is going to fail. So I do think some of that is a bit of a shame. I do think it's the right time for Southgate to go. I think he did, in a sense, take this England team as far as he could. I think he will deserve a lot of credit for the platform that he has built in the way in which he has changed the mentality and the approach around the England team. And I do think that England will win a major tournament in the not too distant future, and Southgate will deserve some credit for that. in the way that he has brought some of these young players through and the changes that he made to the infrastructure of English football. But it's probably the right time for him to leave. I think this is his worst tournament, even though he made a final. I think 2022, like the World Cup in 22 was better than this in terms of the way England played. And it's the right time to go. He failed this time because, as we also discussed, if you're this defensive, if you're this negative, then it is win or bust. France also have just experienced that. If you set your stall out to play that kind of negative football, if you don't win it all, it's not good. Because people would rather see entertainment and lose. And Spain played better football, and that was kind of, the right outcome for good football in terms of Spain winning that tournament. But the only issue for England is who is the next England manager. People will talk about Jurgen.
Can I set the odds?
Go for it.
Okay. Eddie Howe is your clubhouse favorite at, I'm going to give you Bet365 odds at 2-1. Graham Potter is at 11-4. Jurgen Klopp is at 10-1. Pochettino at 11-1. Good old Thomas Tuchel at 18-1. And my pick for who it's going to be at 20-1. It's just itching at the opportunity. Frank Lampard.
Oh. Yeah, I mean, in a sense,
watch
Tuchel,
him slide into this.
I think Tuchel finding his way in the England managerial position would be the most Thomas Tuchel thing ever, that he just kind of keeps getting these new jobs without doing anything spectacular.
I should also say Pep Guardiola is at 25-1. That's obviously a name.
Yeah, I think we can rule Jurgen Klopp out. I know the USA got very excited when they supposedly made an approach through intermediaries to get Jurgen Klopp to be the next USA manager. He's very, clearly spoken about the fact that he wants a break. And so, this doesn't, yes, international management is not as intense and he could still have some time to travel the world and spend time with his family, but he clearly wants a break. And also we had, Ralph Honigstein on the podcast, and that was, quite a while ago. But even then he said that Jurgen Klopp's one remaining ambition was to be the German manager. Well, it might be, I know you could be England manager and then be the Germany manager, but it might be a bit hard to be England manager if he did win the World Cup and then become Germany manager. That might be a little bit of a harder path. So otherwise, are you hoping Jurgen Klopp takes the England manager job but hopes to not win anything? That's a bit tougher. I can't see Pep Guardiola leaving City right now, but maybe next season or the season after. I think that's the only argument, if you kind of hoped that Southgate would have hung on for one more tournament, is because I do think that would have brought Guardiola and potentially Klopp into play. Eddie Howe on that list, I do think Eddie Howe is a very good manager. So I would be fine with Eddie Howe. He's the one that kind of would almost excite me the most. I think he gets his teams to play quite nice football and, is a popular figure typically within the squads that he manages, which I also think is important. But, the problem is a lot of people are obviously going to want an English manager to manage the England team. There was a lot of backlash after that period where England had a number of foreign managers take charge, and where the thought was you can't do it properly as a foreigner. I think Capello was a bit of an issue because he really didn't speak great English, so that's a whole different thing. But we don't have a great batch of experienced England managers. So for context for listeners, no English manager has ever won the Premier League, for example. Yes, when I mean Premier League, I mean since it got rebranded as the Premier League in 1992. But that's still over 30 years. We've never seen an English manager win the English major competition. And only 8 English managers have ever managed a single Champions League match in the history of the Champions League.
Wow, that's pretty crazy.
So we're not exactly a nation for all of our footballing pedigree and the wonderful players we produce. We don't exactly.
And is Eddie Howe one of them?
Yes, because through Newcastle, yeah. So he has kind of one of the strongest resumes available. Graham Potter as well through Chelsea. I think Chelsea were in the Champions League when Graham Potter was there. So those two make that list. But we have not historically produced. Whilst there have been great British managers, because you obviously have Sir Alex Ferguson as the most successful manager in the history of the Premier League. He's Scottish, unfortunately, and also retired. But yeah, I don't know. Eddie Howe, I wouldn't say excites me, but I could talk myself into the Eddie Howe era for England. But yeah, we're not exactly looking at a kind of murderer's row of managerial talent there.
So I guess, is there anything else you want to cover for these 2024 Euro?
I'm going to say I found Spain a little bit insufferable post-victory. And in particular, I had Cucurella with his little chant that he loves to do. They've seen multiple public appearances where he's doing his chant that the fans created for him. I've had a bit much. I look forward to Cucurella going back to being an average defender at domestic level, and I will enjoy that. Also, one stat I hate: Spain have become the first team to win all of their matches. They drew with Germany. They went to extra time. That's not a win, okay? But basically, otherwise, all that stat should say is Spain are the first team to ever win the Euros and win all 3 group games. That's the statistic you're telling me. Because obviously the team that wins the tournament will have advanced from every knockout stage match. So if we're including extra time, then you're only telling me.
According to Bet365, that wasn't a win.
No. Good luck getting paid out on that. But go and tell them the statistic that everyone's talking about. So that one I found a little bit annoying. And then equally, yeah, I mean, they were good, but they maybe weren't quite as good as some people are speaking about. Let's just see how this goes for Spain over the next few years. I do think the statistic, which if we'd recorded an episode sort of pre-final, at the time it was 22, which I was looking forward to saying, but it's since the 2002 UEFA Champions League final, Spanish teams and the Spanish national team have played in 23 major finals against non-Spanish teams, and every time the Spanish team has won. So to make that clear, so including Spain playing in a World Cup final or the European Championships, or a Spanish team playing in the Champions League, the UEFA Cup, or the Europa League, whenever a Spanish domestic team, club side, has played a non-Spanish team in the final, or whenever Spain has made a final, the Spanish side has won. You look very confused by that statistic.
I think I understand what you're saying.
So there have obviously been some all-Spanish finals.
Like a Real Madrid-Barcelona final, you're saying?
Like Real Madrid played Atletico Madrid, for example, in a Champions League final. So obviously a Spanish side had to lose that. But every time it has been, since 2002, a Spanish side versus a non-Spanish side, including in international football, the Spanish side has won. And that's 23 finals now. So that's kind of impressive.
That's nice.
But again, sort of meaningless, but kind of impressive.
So let's stick with Spain, Eddie, and move to a different sport. And that being tennis and Wimbledon and Alcaraz repeating as champion of Wimbledon.
Yeah, super impressive. I mean, he didn't look at his best over the course of the tournament itself. Like he had a lot of 5-set victories where it looked like he was maybe going to go out in earlier rounds. And I thought coming into the tournament that he would probably win Wimbledon, especially obviously with Djokovic having his knee injury and at one point not even expecting to play. But then over the course of the 2 weeks, he sort of went into the final thinking Djokovic probably looked better than Alcaraz. And Alcaraz has given all of his opponents opportunities, and Djokovic is likely to take those opportunities where Alcaraz's previous opponents have let them slip. But I mean, he just brushed Djokovic aside in that final. I mean, it was dominant. And it felt like a little bit of a changing of the guard moment. Like we've, for 3 years on the podcast, spoken about, like, when is there going to be this generational shift in tennis? We've seen it gradually just through retirement more than outplaying them. This felt like the okay, I don't think Djokovic is the best player in the world anymore. Like, I think Alcaraz, like if they go toe to toe, Alcaraz has to be favorite now on any surface all the time. That doesn't mean Djokovic can't beat him, but it did feel a bit like that. And then you throw Yannick Sinner's good performances in this season in, and it feels like we got a legitimate sort of big two that does not include any of the old big three. So I think that's good for men's tennis. And obviously, too, like Alcaraz, impressive, kind of think of him as a clay court specialist. We spoke about the fact that in the end, Roland Garros he checked the clay court Grand Slam off the list last, but now he comes, back-to-back champion at Wimbledon, and also becomes only the sixth men's player in history to win Roland Garros and Wimbledon back-to-back. And that's impressive
crazy.
list.
Yeah.
That's Rod Laver, Bjorn Borg, Roger Federer, Rafael Nadal, Novak Djokovic, and him. And I think you could argue that the first five who've done it are the greatest five tennis players of all time. So that's a pretty good list to be on, because that literally is, that's the short list. I think those are the only men's players you would say are in the discussion for greatest player of all time and who you can make a legitimate case for. And now Alcaraz is there as a 21-year-old. So I don't think he'll get close to Djokovic in terms of the number of Grand Slams he'll win over the course of his career, just because that number is so huge and you have to play for so long to even stand a chance. But yeah, he looks like he could be, we faced a couple of years ago, it looked like we might have a very depressing post Big Three era, and now things look a little bit better.
Yeah. It is. It's very impressive how quickly this has started to happen now. Because we did speak about how long will it take, and now you're looking back on it, and it's Alcaraz seems to be winning everything.
Yeah. No, obviously, like Djokovic is going to win something else. Like, I'm not going to, start preparing, again, similar to Harry Kane. I don't think this is the complete end of Novak Djokovic, and he's clearly not fully fit. And, I think we will see him win. I wouldn't be surprised if he won the US Open. I wouldn't be surprised if he wins Wimbledon next year. I wouldn't be that surprised if he wins Wimbledon 2 years from now. There's a lot that could happen still for Novak Djokovic for him to get back to number one in the world, to make a strong case for still being the best player in the world. But realistically, I think we now see a couple of younger players who are going to be very, very hard for him to compete against when, he is going to have to be at his very best to beat Alcaraz and Sinner most of the time. And it's been a while since we've had to say that. I do think he's played in, post Nadal, post Federer, and I know Nadal's still not technically retired, but we've really been in a post Nadal era for about 2 years now because of his injuries. And Djokovic has been able to thrive against players where he could be, like a 7 out of 10 and still basically dominate.
Yeah.
But a good Sunday for Spain. Obviously, Alcaraz winning Wimbledon on Sunday, Spain winning the European Championships, and Sergio Garcia won the Live golf tournament in Andalusia in Spain. So it was, if you really care about Live golf, and if that's what you wanted to classify as the big three sporting events of Sunday, which I think would have been generous to Live, but that was a clean sweep for Spain. So, good for them.
So I guess moving on from that, I have a trivia question for you that popped up that I want to see. This is a sport we don't discuss much. It is called baseball, aka America's pastime. I thought I'd bring it up because it was just the home run derby yesterday, and today is the MLB All-Star game. Home run derby had a little bit of a new format. They're always trying to revamp it to make it more exciting, but I always just thought the home run derby was pretty exciting in general. I don't know why they're constantly revamping it. Like, you hit long fucking home runs. Like, that's the point of the home run derby. Maybe the non-steroids is taken away from some of the fun of seeing people hit 700-foot home runs out of stadiums. But it was fun. I watched probably half of it, the second half of it, and it was entertaining as it usually is. It kind of sucks when some of the big players don't do it, kind of like the slam dunk contest when the big players don't want to do it anymore. So that's kind of a letdown, but I have more sympathy for a baseball player who doesn't want to do a home run derby than a slam dunk contest, because you can make the argument that the home run derby may slightly mess up your swing a little, and you're taking, in this case, they were taking over 120 swings, which maybe that's a normal day for them. But when you're trying to hit it as hard as you can, that is some exertion. When you're doing a slam dunk, you literally are doing 5 dunks. Like it's not that crazy.
No, I do agree with you. At the same time, like how delicate do we think Aaron Judge's swing is? Where if he takes like 120 big cuts of the ball, that's going to derail his swing for the rest of the season. Like, are you telling me that Aaron Judge doesn't go into like the batting cage or, take some batting practice pre-game and isn't just trying to smash some home runs occasionally for an extended period of time? But I do understand, like, obviously there are players who've gone on record and said, I competed in the home run derby and then my swing was messed up for the remainder of the season. But It does feel like a little bit of an easy excuse, but I get it. I think I agree with you. Like the home run derby is just exciting and easy for anyone to understand. Like you don't have to watch baseball and you can turn the home run derby on, understand it instantly and kind of appreciate it.
Not anymore.
But not anymore. They're complicating it beyond degree. The only thing I think they had to do was like maybe make it a bit shorter. It's always been very long. Which
is what they did this year. They put a time limit on.
But aside from making it shorter, like they didn't need to make it so complicated.
Yeah. Which I almost felt bad for the players, because with the time limit, they were just like every pitch was like they were like constantly like ripping. Like that's got to get tiring. Like I don't care who you are, to swing the bat 40 times like with a second break in between is going to be tiring. I don't know if you saw the main takeaway though from the home run derby was the national anthem of the home run derby. I don't know if you saw this. So country music quote unquote star and nominee Ingrid Andress, she apparently sang what is being known as the world's worst, or not the world's, the America's worst rendition of the national anthem. It was an absolute clusterfuck of a disaster. She then went on social media the next day and said, I'm not going to bullshit y'all. I was drunk last night. I'm checking myself into facility today to get the help I need. That was not me last night. I'll apologize to MLB, all the fans, and this country I love so much for that rendition. I'll let y'all know how rehab is. I hear it's super fun. Really taking it serious there.
I mean, yeah, to sing so badly that you have to put yourself into rehab is quite impressive.
But then to make a joke out of it?
Yeah, I'm not taking it so seriously. But as someone who's attended a lot of karaoke sessions in my life, I mean, that's an awful rendition of the national anthem. And I don't know if being drunk alone can explain how bad that is.
Like, she didn't say what she was drunk on.
Yeah, it's true. Just life.
So having said that, Eddie, this is my trivia question for you. What are the 7 ways a hitter can reach first base?
Okay. A hit.
A hit.
Single.
Okay.
A walk.
A walk.
Is a hit by pitch included
different.
In?
That's
it's different.
Yep. Okay. So you got 3. Flying start.
And how many do you say they were? 9?
7.
Is an intentional walk separate from a walk or no?
No. Walk, hit by pitch, hit.
Error.
Error. Good.
Catcher's interference.
Nice. Catcher's interference. Good one.
How many
2 more.
Do I have there? 2 more. Fielder's choice.
Fielder's choice. Last one.
Is it a hard one? Am I missing one?
Kind of. It's rare.
because you can't get on first with a balk, right? Like that could never happen. I can't think of anything. Can you give me a slight clue? Is there something that could maybe put me in the right direction?
I can give you the statistic, and then that might help. It happens less than once every 2,000 strikeouts.
Oh, like a drop pitch. Like a drop third strike.
Yep, drop strike 3. Okay. Nice.
Okay.
That's pretty good.
Well, you don't get to my level of softball without knowing how to get to first base.
I'm sure the drop strike 3 in softball is not a common occurrence.
Oh no, that happens a lot. That's the one actually I should have known that one. Catcher's interference, I don't think we've ever seen in our softball games. I've definitely seen someone get on a drop third strike.
That's bad.
That's definitely happened. I mean, it is technically fast pitch, right? Although not all the teams have a fast pitcher, but I've definitely seen drop third strikes but it tends to be like a swing at maybe a slightly like wild pitch that then the catcher doesn't collect, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Do you have anything else sports related?
I don't.
Does that mean you have something non-sports related?
I don't really. I know that I'd promised to make inroads with House of the Dragon. I have watched the first 3 episodes.
Oh, okay. Only 2 back.
So I will be. Then if we record the next episode we record this week, I will be fully caught up with, which will be before the next episode.
So we can do a pretty much half season recap, half season plus an episode recap.
And a little bit of a preview of like what do we think is going to happen in the next episode.
Perfect.
I will say,
how are you liking season 2?
It's definitely better than season 1 so far. More happens. I think that's my biggest reason for enjoying it more is that like there were long periods of season 1 that felt like not a ton went on. And we did have episodes that were solely dedicated to we used to be friends and we're not friends anymore, but couldn't we be friends again? That was like full episodes almost. And this is a little bit more someone's dying, someone's trying to be killed, war might be about to happen. So I think it's more enjoyable from that perspective. But I still don't think it's incredible. Like, it's fine. It's a good TV show, I guess, but it's not wowing me.
Is there a TV show that currently is wowing you?
No. I mean, it is a little bit of a down period for TV, and I've been so focused on like the Euros, the Cricket World Cup, Wimbledon, Tour de France. Like, I have very little time to spend on non-live sporting events. So the next month we'll probably see that change a bit. I'm itching to get to the movie theater to see Horizon. So that's happening.
You and 3 other people in the world.
That's happening in the next week as well. I'm off to Nice this weekend actually to watch the final stages of the Tour de France, which is, would traditionally finish in Paris, but is finishing in Nice because they had to move it as a result of the Olympics. So heading down to Nice for a little bit of a unique experience, which will be fun, but it is also delaying my Horizon viewing. So middle of next week, I'll probably get to see Horizon. I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, boy. All right. Well, I think with that big recap of the finals and
I have one thing. One little thing on House of the Dragon. Having just watched, I guess it was in maybe episode 2, potentially episode 3. I'm not sure. The guy who has the eye patch, the brother of the king, with no eye. There was a scene where he was like being comforted by a prostitute.
Okay.
Really weird looking naked body he had. Like that took me. I don't know if that was slightly edited because it doesn't look anything based on the show.
Are you talking about the Voldemort pose?
Yeah.
That's what people are calling it.
the strange like fetal position that he was in, and he was like a lot bonier than I expected him to be.
Was that the last episode you saw?
No. Why does that?
Because there's a slight change in his appearance.
Yeah, but I'm talking specifically about the naked body.
So am I.
No, but you know what I mean. Like in that particular pose is when I found him to be a bit bizarre looking.
Yeah.
That was all. And not in the sense that it looked that weird, but just I would have to imagine that it was edited, because I don't think that guy is as... Anyway, we'll get onto it in future discussions.
Yeah, we can discuss. He looks bigger. He looks bigger in the next episode.
Yes, but I just wanted to have... I didn't want us to go into a longer discussion, but I just meant that I wanted to speak about that one particular scene. One of my major takeaways.
All right. Well, with that, I think we'll wrap it up and call it a day. And we'll be back later this week for, among other things, our House of the Dragon mid-season recap, from what it sounds like.
Sounds good.
All right, I'll talk to you later.
See ya.
See ya.